Hi guys, my name's Twizzy and today I'm going to be doing a small review on Pokemon Detective Pikachu, which I saw on Monday. Okay, to start, I just wanted to say that I've always been a huge fan of Pokemon. My childhood was submersed in the whole franchise. I have really vivid memories of waking up really early in the morning, as all young children seem to do. I don't know why that is, but just young people just seem to wake up naturally in early time. And I remember going into my brother's room and watching Pokemon on, I think, CITV, on his really tiny TV in the corner. I used to have the biggest crush on Ash Ketchum, and I was so damn jealous in that one Pokemon movie where he kisses that Pokemon girl, that girl who can turn into that flying Pokemon. I can't remember her name. It was a bit like bestiality, but I was really jealous. I had a Pikachu backpack and I had this Pikachu hoodie which I wore on my first ever Mufti day in year 7. If you don't know what Mufti day is, it's where you go into school wearing your own clothes. And I remember I had ears in the hood, and in my maths lesson I had my head on the table and my hood up, so obviously my ears were poking out, and my teacher told me off for obviously having my head on the table, and these two popular kids turned around and started laughing at me, but it was okay because later that day a sixth former came up to me and she said that her and her friends love my hoodie. Okay, gamers unite, we're the most oppressed race. And I was a hardcore gamer girl, alright. I remember my brother gave me his copy of Pokemon Diamond for DS. So basically Pokemon played a really important role in my life, so when I saw that they were making a live action Pokemon movie, I had to jump on that real quick. Just before I headed to the cinema, my dad let me know that it's going to be awful and ruin your childhood, and I kind of thought the same, but it's not every day that your childhood dreams get created and put in front of you in the cinema. I don't know how I can express this to you, but whatever you were into as a kid, you know how badly you wanted it to be real. Transformers, Mew Mew Power, even Minecraft. I used to play Minecraft in the playground in primary school. So I was trying to be really hopeful going into Screen 6 on that Monday evening, and I wasn't even that disappointed. So we're going to go straight into the plot. This is going to have some spoilers. Well, it's going to have all the spoilers because I'm going to say exactly what happens. So if you don't want spoilers, I'll put a timestamp on the screen that you can follow and skip all of this. So Detective Pikachu is a murder mystery movie based on the video game Detective Pikachu, which was released in 2016. So the film opens with a mirroring of that scene from the Pokemon movie where Mewtwo breaks out of the lab, and oh my god, it gave me the biggest hit of nostalgia, and I just knew I was ready for this movie. So after that hint of what's to come, we're introduced to the main character Tim and his friend, who we will literally never see again or hear of again in this movie. Tim's friend is trying to convince him to catch a Cubone who is sobbing in the middle of this field, but Tim is nah, Pokemon ain't my thing. So after this cute little scene, our plot device friend over here gives us some exposition. Basically, everyone in Tim's town is moving away onto better things, and he's worried about Tim because he's lonely and working in a dead-end insurance job. Luckily, just before Tim's friend tells us his credit card number and home address, Tim gets a call from Rhyme City where his father works as a detective and is informed that his father has died in a car crash. So Tim heads to Rhyme City, gets licked up on the train, and we find out that this world is completely different to his home life. We get a huge exposition dump in the form of a train announcement, which tells us about this guy called Howard Clifford, who, once he was diagnosed with a rare degenerative genetic disease, realised the healing powers of Pokemon companionship and created Rhyme City so that people and Pokemon could live in harmony. Can I just say, what kind of train announcement is this? Every time I enter London, I don't expect a 2-minute history lesson on the city, but, I guess they've got to deliver that exposition in some way or other. So Tim enters the city, which is a weird hybrid of London, Tokyo and New York all in one, and heads to the police department where he collects the keys to his father's apartment. Once Tim reaches Harry's apartment, he gets approached by wannabe reporter, C&M intern Lucy Stevens. Apparently Lucy has no social skills or has never had a death occur in her family because she immediately tries to interrogate him and suggests that his father's death is a lot more suspicious than is being let on. Tim brushes her off for obvious reasons and heads up to the apartment, only to find a mysterious vial with purple gas labelled R, which, when opened, makes him choke like mad. At this point, we're introduced to Pikachu, Harry's old partner, who can somehow be understood by Tim. Before we get too deep into this, Apoms who are exposed to the purple gas that Tim released start attacking the pair, who make a run for it and escape to the streets of Rhyme City through one of those scaffolding slides, which I've always wanted to use. Pikachu reveals that he has no memories of Harry, but knows that he belongs to him because Harry's name is in his hat and he can just feel it in his jellies. Tim says fuck it and decides to take Pikachu on. They go to Harry's apartment to get ready for the next day of wild adventures, and we get more exposition in the form of flashbacks. Yay! We find out that Tim used to be a Pokemon fan and wanted to be a Pokemon trainer until his mum died and he went to live with his grandma. I can't lie, I'm not too sure about all the details of this, because I kind of switched off at this point. That soft focus was just getting to me. I couldn't deal with this flashback. So the next morning they head to C&M to get more information from Lucy. Here we meet Howard Clifford, who obviously was the visionary of Rhyme City, and his son Roger, who is just a huge dick apparently. Lucy tells the pair to head to the docks where they meet Mr. Mime, and this is where the audience I was with got really awkward and no one laughed, so I really want to brush over it because it's making me wince when I think back on this scene. I found it funny, but no one else was laughing, so I'm going to pretend it didn't happen. So Mr. Mime tells them to go to this illegal Pokemon battling ring where they meet a Nipple Man who has a Charizard who Pikachu previously beat in a battle. Nipple Man is still hung up on this, so he challenges Pikachu to another battle. This is where I got really excited because I was like, yes, this is what I want in my Pokemon live action movie, a Pokemon battle. So Nipple Man slips his Charizard some of that good arse stuff and then the battle begins. And let's just say I was heavily disappointed as Pikachu pussies out because he's forgotten how to use his powers. The scene ends with Tim grabbing a random Magikarp and just willing it to evolve. Like, he's just like, yeah, I want it to evolve. And it does. In Gyarados. And saves Tim and Pikachu. Sure. After some emotional moment where Tim is like, shit, my dad dead, they get taken to see Howard Clifford, who has some, like, IRL CCTV VR technology, which captured CCTV of Harry's crash and shows that Mewtwo caused the crash. He also tells them that Roger wants to take over the city and has big daddy issues. The team then pair up with Lucy and Psyduck and go to the lab where Mewtwo was being tested on. They find a bunch of genetically altered Pokemon and Tim enters one of those IRL, CCTV, VR things, again, for reasons. I think Pikachu was just like tapping around a computer. And then they were like, oh, so we're in this now. So in the CCTV thing, he finds out that Harry was the one who actually captured Mewtwo and brought him to the genetically altering lab. They get attacked by Greninjas and then Pikachu like almost dies, I think. But Bulbasaur's are like, not today, and take Pikachu to Mewtwo, who uses that revive on him. We get another flashback where we see that Pikachu was the one to free Mewtwo, therefore Pikachu killed Harry, is the conclusion of this scene. Mewtwo gets captured by Roger before he can explain anything else. Pikachu feels guilty and fucks off somewhere whilst Tim goes to Howard to tell him about what they found, only to find that Howard captured Mewtwo himself so that he could fuse himself with him and become super powerful because he's in a wheelchair. We flash back to emo Pikachu singing the Pokemon theme and he finds Greninja stars at the site of Harry's death. And from this he concludes that Mewtwo was not the one who caused the crash. He was trying to save Harry, who has no clue that they were going to genetically alter Mewtwo. Meanwhile, Tim is getting destroyed by Howard and his Ditto, who is pretending to be Roger. Basically, Howard has this like genetically altered Ditto who can become people. Howard releases the R, like the R, the gas chemical. I don't know why it's called R, they really could have called it something else. He releases the R over the whole city and everyone turns into their Pokemon, which is low-key lit. Like, I would not be complaining if I suddenly became a whole ass Snorlax, but go off, I guess. I don't know why everyone was so mad. Pikachu returns to the city and has a stupid fight with Mewtwo where he uses like 2 moves, destroys him, and Tim grabs the fusing thing off Howard's head so that he's no longer fused to Mewtwo. Mewtwo then cleanses the city and brings everyone back to normality. Howard is arrested, Lucy is promoted, and promises Tim that they'll beat tomorrow. We find out that Mewtwo fused Harry and Pikachu together during the crash to prevent Harry from dying. He splits them apart again and we get awkward Ryan Reynolds being Tim's dad, and that's the end! I don't know if I can comment on how convincing the plot is because I'm stupid. Like, I don't see obvious things coming in mystery or detective movies until they're right in my face. So I don't know if I have the expertise to say whether I think this is a good plot from that angle or not, but I can comment on things that kind of irked me a little and that I was like, that ain't right. So the Nipple Man scene was completely pointless. I feel like they just included this bit because, you know, the whole like Pikachu versus Charizard is really iconic, but still, we didn't even see a proper fight between the two, and all the Nipple Man told them was that there was a doctor who they had to find, and Lucy tells them about this doctor in the car journey on the way to the lab anyways. Also, did they really need to do the twist villain like that? Because Howard is a fine enough twist villain on his own because he's set up to be a really great guy. Like, look, he, you know, created the city and he's in a wheelchair. Like, we're literally not allowed to dislike him. Like, why can't we just get rid of Roger and have Howard be the good guy turned bad on its own? We didn't need Roger to, like, subvert our expectations. Oh my god, Roger's not actually the evil guy, it's Howard. It was just unneeded. We did not need Roger at all, except to give Lucy a promotion at the end of the film. Also, this whole IRL CCTV is completely whack, and it's just there to deliver exposition. Like, there could have been a much more interesting way to reveal all this stuff about Mewtwo being studied on, and the history of the lab and genetic altering. How about that totally unrealistic amnesia thing where Pikachu gets, like, bursts of information from what happened that night? Or maybe they could find the doctor and interrogate her. You know, I'm sure they'd love more screen time for their token celebrity, Rita Ora. Another thing that felt off to me was how little we saw of Tim's usual life. Like, we're in his hometown for about 5 minutes at the start of the film, and although it may be boring to see because, you know, it's just a normal town like mine or yours, it would have been nice because it would have made a greater contrast between Rhyme City if we'd seen how monotonous and boring Tim's life is there, and it would have given him more motivation for breaking out of his boring lifestyle if we saw how sad his life is, rather than this random friend telling him, yeah, you're really, really lonely like this Cubone. If we'd stayed in this town for longer, we could have met Tim's grandma, who could have delivered the exposition about his past in a more natural way. The only way that Tim learns that his dad actually cared about him, which kind of motivates his actions, is a happy birthday card that was never sent to him, that he finds in his dad's home that's like, happy 21st birthday, I wish you could come out to Rhyme City. That's the only way you find out that Harry cares about Tim. And this is one of the motivating factors which leads to Tim going on this journey. How about a scene after Tim gets the phone call about his dad dying where he talks to his grieving grandma? She pulls out loads of birthday cards from his dad that she kept because she didn't want him moving to the city because she would have been lonely. Okay, maybe that's a bit deep, but I mean, come on, look at that scene where all the Pokemon beat each other up in the Pokemon movie. I'm looking for something to hit me like that did. Characters and casting. Our main character, Tim Goodman, is played by Justice Smith. In some places in the movie, his performance is really fun and it gives off a lot of energy, which a film like this needs. However, in some parts, his emotional performance just wasn't up to scratch. In one of the first emotional moments after he sees CCTV footage of his father's crash, like his father literally dying, his line delivery is just so awkward, and I was watching it and giggling because, no real people speak like this. No real people, after seeing their dad's death on film, speak like this, and it was just uncomfortable to watch. And also, I understand that Tim wasn't close to his father, but he was really not bothered at all. I would expect him to be grieving just a little bit. You know, in the scene where he picks up the keys from the police department, he just comes off as a dick, and not because he's upset, but because he just seems to be over his father dying. But hey, we stand a protagonist of colour, so... Okay, Pikachu. A lot of people were confused about how Ryan Reynolds could tie into a Pokemon movie. You know, a franchise that's for little baby children versus Ryan Reynolds, who's known for just effing and blinding all over the place. But I think that Ryan Reynolds actually fit quite well. The performance wasn't too Deadpool, which was very pleasing, and I think the bond between him and Tim was quite genuine. The constant one-liners did get a little grating, especially during emotional moments, but I could look past it. I just feel like Ryan Reynolds plays a really awkward dad. At the end, he was speaking to his son who hasn't seen in years and who thought he was dead. And it sounds like he has this sarcastic edge to his voice, like if he's about to roast his son or something. It's just awkward. It made me laugh. Lacey Stevens is played by Katherine Newton, and you may know her from her role in Lady Bird that she had, apparently. Okay, she is so adorable. She physically looks like a Pokemon character. She looks like Dawn or Misty. She looks like she could be in the Pokemon anime. She has this adorable face and these really wide eyes, and her haircut is so cute. I love the little curls at the end, and it's such a nice colour. This casting physically was really, really on point. Unfortunately, her performance didn't really match that for me. I see her and Tim more as friends than love interests is how we're meant to see them. Also, at some emotional moments, when Pikachu is literally dying, I could see the corners of her mouth, turning up into a smile, and it just broke the moment a little bit for me, but she's so cute, so I can't be mad at her. Lacey Stevens
is the cutest thing you will ever see in your entire life. He has giant eyes that seem endless. You could just stare into them all day.
Howard Clifford was played by Bill Nighy, who I love so much. He's in some of my favourite things, like About Time, the Cornetto Trilogy, and Flushed Away. But I did not relish in his performance in this film. It's not as if he can't play bad guys. He's literally played, the Met Chief Inspector in Hot Fuzz, who's kind of, tough and not a nice guy. And, Whitey in Flushed Away. I mean, this guy is badass. Maybe the character is just a poorly constructed villain, but I just wasn't convinced by his evil, and he definitely needed more screen time. Okay, on to the technical aspects of the film. Okay, on to the CG, arguably the most important part of the movie. What warms my heart about this is that one of the artists who worked on the movie, RJ Palmer, got brought onto the film because the team straight up googled realistic Pokemon and found his work. So, shout out to him. I guess there has been a bit of a split on opinion because on the one hand, we want the Pokemon to look realistic as if they were in our own world, but we also understand that these are anime animals with big goofy anime eyes. So for me, they really hit the nail on the head with this style. A few standout cuties were Bulbasaur, Growlithe and Psyduck, while ones that made me uncomfortable, or aroused, I couldn't tell, were Mr. Mime and Lickitung. I like that they made the Pokemon a little dirty. They exist in an urban city area with, probably mad pollution, so it was nice to see that they weren't squeaky clean and super colourful. As for the cinematography, I can't remember anything being super exciting. I did think the lighting at the start was really weird and everything was a little bit overexposed. There's this really awkward shot where Tim is being led by the Bulbasaur to Mewtwo, and he like walks up to the camera and is completely out of focus, and it doesn't look like his mouth is lining up with what he's saying. For shots I did like, there was this shot of Pikachu on top of a balloon fighting Mewtwo, and the camera goes towards him and then goes behind him, just kind of mimicking how it looks when you're in a battle in Pokemon games. I kind of wish that we saw a bit more of just Pokemon in the movie. Like, there are some great establishing shots when Tim enters Rhyme City, where we see a Machoke guiding traffic as Snorlax is falling asleep in the road, and stuff like that. There's another shot of Jigglypuff singing in the bar and some guy falling asleep. Like, I kind of wanted more gags like that, kind of BoJack Horseman style. Also, if we're considering a world where Pokemon and humans live as one, why didn't it look a little different? Like in Zootopia, we see how the city has different installments and transport systems for each animal. What if someone that has like an Arcanine? Like, how are they going to get through doors? A little more attention to those kind of details would have been nice, but the main focus is how the Pokemon physically look, and for me the fur and skin and all of that was on point. A particularly bad point for me was in the forest when the lab starts falling apart. This is about, I'd say, near the end of the second act of the film, where everything's just kind of, railing up for the third act. And the gang are like hanging from tree trunks, and Tim runs across this ravine and clings to the side of the ledge. And it all looks a bit crap. Luckily they used short, choppy shots to cover this up, but when I saw Tim jump and his hands held onto the ledge, it was just not believable at all. Like, he's meant to be gripping for his life, and it looked like his hands were sliding off glass or something like that. This is like, rock and grass. The final thing that irked me was that they never played the Pokemon theme in the film. What the hell? All we got was shitty Ryan Reynolds rendition as Pikachu was like being all emo and walking away from the gang. Not even in the credits. I stayed for the credits waiting. I don't know why. Like, why didn't they just play it in the credits or, at some point in the film? They didn't even have to have the lyrics, like just a little instrumental version. It really pissed me off. So as I said, Pokemon played a huge role in my childhood, so this review is definitely biased, but this film just made me feel so good inside. If you were ever a fan of Pokemon, you remember imagining what having a Pokemon would be like, you planned out what your team would be, and maybe you even pretend to walk around with one. I just can't help feel happy when watching this movie, and although it can be awkward in some places and the plot is a bit hit or miss, it works for me. I would definitely stream it on Netflix, and maybe buy it on DVD, if it was on sale.